Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Nabiyana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Dear brothers, sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to this new program, Voice of Istiqlal. I am your host, Dr. Salman Butt, Chief Editor of Islam 21C. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you a brand new program called Voice of Istiqlal, talking about matters relating to East Turkestan, our Uyghur brothers and sisters. We're going to have conversations in this program on the very important issue and issues surrounding the genocide of our Uyghur brothers and sisters. We're going to be joined by different experts, Uyghur brothers and sisters themselves, scholars, researchers and so forth on this program. And it started in order to highlight the matters pertaining to the Uyghur brothers and sisters and matters pertaining to East Turkestan from the perspective and the voices of Uyghurs themselves. So today's program, it brings me great pleasure to introduce Sheikh Abdul Hakim Idris. He is the Executive Director for the Center for Uyghur Studies. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Abdul Hakim.
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm so humble and honored to be first program of Voice of Istiqlal. It means a lot to me to bring the voiceless Uyghur Muslims, their voice to around the world, especially to the Muslim brothers and sisters. And being with you, Dr. Salman, it's an honor for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine. Now, I want just, probably everyone watching and tuning in knows you already, but just for the benefit of those who maybe do not, could you just describe what your role is and what some of your work is, your background when it comes to the Center for Uyghur Studies and beyond?
I am originally coming from Islamic schools. I studied in the madrasa in Khotan, studied in Al-Azhar in Cairo. Worked in Uyghur activism more than 30 years. Right now, I am the Executive Director for Center for Uyghur Studies, a DC-based think tank. We want to bring the Uyghur perspectives around the world. Right now, there are a few books written about the Uyghurs from Western scholars. Their mainly source are from the Chinese. So we want to bring more and more about the Uyghur issue from the Uyghur perspective, and from Uyghur knowledge, and especially Uyghur Muslims perspective. As you know, right now it's going on a war against Islam in East Turkestan. And we want to especially highlight this issue, especially what the CCP's attacking on Muslims, bring awareness, bring this oppression to the Ummah, to the Muslims. Then, at least we can achieve their support, their dua, their praise, and that's our duty. And I'm doing this based in the DC, Washington, but right now we are working around the world. I have, as you know, many comrades which I studied in Khotan, in East Turkestan, and in Cairo, in Al-Azhar. So we have good networks, and we are trying to this work.
Jazakallah khair. Now, in the last few years in particular, there's been an increasing amount of media coverage of of some of the things that's happening in East Turkestan, which is what we refer to as Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, or the Chinese Communist Party refers to as Xinjiang province, which, correct me if I'm wrong, translates to new colony or new frontier, new territory. So the problem between the Chinese state and the people of East Turkestan has been going on for many decades, right? Ever since probably the creation of the Chinese Communist Party. But in the last few years, many have described what's been going on to the Uyghur people in East Turkestan as genocide. Famously, an independent Uyghur tribunal in London in 2021, for example, declared, after listening to expert testimonies and witness testimonies, expert reports, and even whistleblowers, determining that what's happening in East Turkestan, what's happening to the Uyghur and other Muslim minorities there, is tantamount to genocide. Now, there's been an increasing amount of media coverage about what's happening, but what there is a bit of a lack of is actually finding out how the Uyghur brothers and sisters are living. What are they going through personally? How are they getting through this difficult situation for them, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially? What insights can you share from occupied East Turkestan as to how are the Muslim brothers and sisters there living?
First of all, I thank you for your question. It's personal to me. I am lost contact with my parents since 25th April 2017. I don't know if they are alive or not. Imagine almost 4 years right now, going to bed to sleep, you close your eyes, your parents, your loved one come to your mind. It's very emotional oppression to deal with it. And if you come here, especially in Istanbul, there are more than 60,000 Uyghurs. They are recently came to Turkey. And every family has a unique story. And some kids, they don't know their parents are alive or not. Some husband don't know if their wives are alive or not, or raped by the Chinese communist officials. Mm-hmm. Or, some have kids in East Turkestan, don't know, are they, raised in atheist orphanage schools. That's a very tragic situation. And as a Uyghur refugee or Uyghur immigrant, we're dealing with it. And as a Uyghur immigrant, we are very new in the free world, especially in Western country. And we are dealing with our daily life, how to, be stay in the safe in the life and earning our livelihoods. But in the same times, it's very a tragic issue. And the days and the times flying, and we facing this situation. It's sometimes very hopeless situation, but thanks to our faith on Islam, on Allah, and we are strong, and we think that we believe this is our imtihan, our faith, and we have to deal with it. And it's true that the Uyghur genocide, the Operation East Turkestan, is in the Western media, but still not known or not getting enough attention in Muslim countries. For example, here, if every country, a Muslim country, if we went to mosque, we go to mosque, and we pray. Our oppressed Muslim brothers and sisters around the world, except Uyghurs. The Imam, say, help those Muslim, but not Uyghurs. And this is what we daily dealing with it. And we feel sometimes like abandoned by our own brothers and sisters on faith. That's the situation, and the many family dealing with it. This depression already showing its aspect on the kids. For example, we don't have a healthy family because of this tragic event. The wife, has some issue, husband have some issue, get angry, and this atmosphere gives the bad atmosphere for the kids. When the kids growing up in this genocide area, not only we are talking about the victims of the Chinese genocide in East Turkestan, but here in the diaspora, we fear our next generation, Muslim Uyghurs kids, that they will get this impact from this this genocide with them, and it will cost them health issue too. That's our situation, but we will get our hope and our strength back if our brothers and sisters on faith with us and showing their support, and that gives us strength.
It's very important to preempt and try to fix the problem of intergenerational inheritance of trauma. There's lots of literature on this for other peoples and other kind of groups that endure genocide and massacres and all types of problems, all the way from, for example, slavery. That there's actually even a scientific basis for the inheritance of certain epigenetic profiles, so profiles of gene expression, even when it comes to children who are raised by parents who have, or born to parents and raised by parents who have undergone trauma, undergone oppression, undergone dhulm, that they have so many different markers of stress, for example, of problems in relationships, of that feeling, like you said, so many mental health disorders as well, that feeling of being abandoned, being alone. And this is one of the things that we're trying to slowly turn around by the permission of Allah. If you're just tuning in, we're on Istiqlal TV, this new program, the voice of Istiqlal. Istiqlal TV is one of the oldest and largest East Turkestan press and media associations. So, organizations like these are very important for us to spread awareness and that connection between what's happening in East Turkestan and the Muslims all over the world. Sheikh Abdul Hakim Adris, he mentioned that mosques all around the world, they make dua for, and rightly so, they make dua for Palestine, for Syria, for Kashmir, for Myanmar. But many people do not even know what's happening in East Turkestan. And one of the reasons, Abdul Hakim, correct me if I'm wrong, is because of the success of Chinese disinformation campaigns, of trying to hide what's going on, trying to paint any news of the genocide of the Uyghurs in East Turkestan, trying to paint that as some kind of conspiracy or fake news or whatever. What's your experience been with disinformation by the Chinese state? And is this relevant to, is this the cause for why you see so many or a lack of coverage of the Uyghur issue in Muslim discourse, from the mosque pulpits all the way down to the tea conversations?
As we get, from the leaked document from Chinese officials, the documents what was published by the New York Times or leaked to the Uyghur Tribunal, the Chinese government, before starting this massive genocide in 2014, they already took care of the majority Muslim countries, rulers, and their media outlets. They invested a lot of money there. And even as we know, many media outlets controlled by the states or by the states' friends, by business people. And China already took care of them to use as a manipulation. And they said, the West will be cry about the Uyghur, about the human rights on that. But if we get the Muslim countries and the Muslim populations and their media under control, they cannot do any things against us. So that's what the main Muslim countries' media doesn't cover Uyghur issue. If you look, for example, Al-Akhbar or Akhbar al-Yawm, this is the second largest newspaper in Egypt, daily newspaper. In this paper, there is a section, Al-Akhbar min as-Sin, news from China, which is Chinese version of news and about the China and the Uyghur issue. They publishing every day. The same is like a Pakistani newspaper Dawn. If you look there, it's the oldest, biggest newspaper in Pakistan. If you look around there in the page or the online version, there is a news from China, which the Chinese Central Radio and Television put the news, broadcasting them. So even around the world, many Chinese embassies or business, they put an advertisement in the big newspaper, and they are very friendly to China, and they repeating China's slogan, this Uyghur genocide is something not happening. So we, as a Uyghur people, we are telling the Muslim countries or Muslim leaders, media outlets, for example, I am one number of the million victims. I'm a person. I lost the contact with my family, my sisters, my brothers and their kids. The same is here, more than, just in Istanbul, more than 60,000. You can come here, visit the family, see with your own eye. And the same is, we have some small Uyghur community around the world, in UK, in US, in Canada, everywhere. Even, you can see it. But Alhamdulillah, despite China spending billions and billions of dollars to manipulate the Muslim Ummah, I think right now the Muslim Ummah begin to know Chinese oppression and the Chinese war against Islam in Turkestan. We see it in Bangladesh. Even in Pakistan, there were students, doing some event about the Uyghur Muslims case, the genocide. And you are one of our hero from Stand for Uyghurs. What you guys did brought to more than 50 Muslim organization in the UK, and created the Stand for Uyghurs, and they did demonstration, conference, media outlets, and many seminars. And even in the day of the creation of Turkestan's Republic in 1933 and 1944, and November 13, November 12, you did around the UK, every mosque, khutbah for the Muslims. And then the 13th went to the front of Chinese embassy in London. First of all, prayed there, because China see as Islam like a virus and illness. And you did this. And I think this is one example through your works and the brothers sisters work in the UK. Right now, every Muslim countries, there's somebody, some elite or some imams or some influential scholars begin to talk about the Uyghur issue and making dua for them. And this is our duty. China can do what they can do, but we have the potential. We have our faith, our iman, and if we go, and do without looking it's small work or big, or without differentiation, what you can do is just do it, and we can see the results. And inshallah, Chinese, we already, I can see the Uyghur Muslims, we already, did some destruction for the Chinese dream. Right now, China seeing around the world as a totalitarian, dictatorial enemy of religion, and the Xi Jinping, see him like a god, and that is what really is. And inshallah, we keep our work and see result, inshallah.
So I want to pick up on a few of those things you mentioned. So there's qualitatively a difference between what the Muslims in the Western countries, in more maybe living as minorities, what they can do, and then there's a difference between that and the Muslim world, the Islamic world, so Muslim majority countries. So let's just focus on the latter for a moment. What you've written a book. In your book, your subtitle is How China is Slowly Colonizing the Muslim World. And you've described how before it stepped up its anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim policies against the Uyghurs in East Turkestan, before it carried out what many are calling genocide now, it first embedded itself within and gained soft power and hard power in many Muslim majority countries. It began to fund and arguably control some of the state-run media outlets in, you mentioned a few countries there. With this being the case, what is your message to Muslims in Muslim majority lands? Are you expecting them to um, what are you expecting them to do? So one level that everyone can do is, okay, gain awareness using the internet, using social media, for example, where you're not, as reliant on these traditional kind of power structures that can be easily manipulated and controlled. But the problem with social media is there's so many, trolls and paid by the Chinese state, for example, to spread disinformation on social media as well. So those people who do have a voice in terms of editors, journalists, we can say mainstream, in the mainstream civil societies in those countries, what is your message specifically to them? Because they may feel, we agree with you, but there's so much power China has over and is exercising over our institutions, over our ability to speak. I've heard stories of them, journalists, investigators going from different Muslim majority countries, seeing what's happening with their own eyes, but then being unable or claiming that they're unable to speak out against this. What is your message specifically to them?
So, as you mentioned, I did some research on those issues, especially in the majority Muslim countries and the Muslims in the Western country or in the democratic free world. What we always ask our brothers and sisters do is raise awareness. What's happening in East Turkestan is not Uyghur issue. It's not national issue. It's the East Turkestan population issue as Muslims. They want, erase them. They already, declared the war on Islam. So this is a face issue. So what we want to ask to those brothers and sisters in Islamic countries, there are some in NGOs and in Muslim institutions. For example, in Egypt, if more than 100 or 200 people go to the Sheikh al-Azhar and talk to him, what is really happening in East Turkestan, I think he will be a little bit carry if you want to meet with the Chinese ambassador to Cairo. And the same is, those Muslims can at least, where they pray in the mosque, go to Imam, tell him what happening, those brothers and sisters. In East Turkestan right now, happening mass rape on Muslim women. In East Turkestan, raising Muslim kids in atheist systems. In East Turkestan, burning copy of Qurans, demolishing mosque. It's happening right now and today. They destructing everything, belong to Islamic civilization in East Turkestan. If 100 or 200 Muslims, brothers and sisters, go to Imam or institution, ask them, I think it will show impact. And I myself used to live in Cairo, in Egypt, more than 4 years. Even that time, if the state was so totalitarian, but the state was always care about what the people thinking on the care. So if we could educate our Muslim brothers and sisters around the world, and especially in Arabic in the world, I think that will be show an impact, and the ruler will then say, okay, I cannot do everything, because in the one time those rulers come out, telling them or selling them as a protector of Islam. And if something happen bad against the Muslims in West, in French, or in UK, or somewhere else, they hurry, after one another to criticize them. And that this moment, if the Muslims come out from own population, says, what are you talking about it? What those is bad. We have to stand for it. But why are you silent? What is happening to Muslims in East Turkestan? Are you blind? What's happening there? It will show an impact, and that is not small things. I am more than 30 years traveling in Western countries, doing advocacy from one state to others, and in those countries, this human rights issue, coming up and going down. And it's always the agenda is changing. But if you educate the Muslims, Muslim brothers and sisters around the world, what is really going on in East Turkestan, I think they will stay with us until this zulm, this oppression get to end.
I mean, one of the reasons that we've seen, you mentioned Stand for Uyghurs, for example. This was a coalition that 50 plus British Muslim organizations came together to form in order to channel people towards effective action for the topic of what's happening in East Turkestan and against the Uyghur, the genocide against the Uyghurs. One of the things that we saw was the reluctance of Muslims to take on this issue globally appears to be partly because of this feeling of powerlessness in standing up against what they perceive to be a burgeoning superpower. So what would you say to those Muslims that say, what can we do against China? China is so powerful. What can we even do when it comes to this issue?
Brother, you saw with your own eye 7,000 to 8,000 Muslims went to front of Chinese embassy in London. The Chinese embassy forced to down their flag. Imagine, one country like a China, they saying, we are the second largest economy in the world. We are so powerful. But there are front of 7,000 to 8,000 Muslims, taking their flag, which is their honor, down. This shows, they are very scared if the Muslim brothers and sisters stand up and speak about this Uyghur genocide. It's very crucial. We don't underestimate the power of the Muslim brothers and sisters regarding this issue. If you look around China, from Indonesia to Malaysia, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan to the Kazakhstan, those areas, mostly majority Muslim population living there. And if they get to know what China already doing on Muslims in East Turkestan, they will be, stand up, say, no, you are killing Muslims, you are burning Qurans, you are demolishing mosques, you are, eradicating cemetery, and you are not seeing holy of the Islam, caring about it, and they will be, stand up. And this is what China very scared about it, and as a Muslims, we should not underestimate this. This is one. Second,
why is China
my point
scared?
is,
why is China scared
the
of this?
Muslim immigrants in Western country have more power. They don't underestimate that, because they living in a free country, and what China is doing is, or it showing the biggest impact on China is disinformation, media. Media, what in Arabic is dawah. Dawah is, from our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What we are doing is dawah, inform our brother and the Muslims in the right way. So if we in the Western country, come out and do some research, do some events, study about the Uyghur issue, and talk to local politician, came out and write and speaking, those issues will have more impact than any other issue. And of course, we as Uyghur Muslims, we are forced to work, or we have to work like a nationwide in the states, Congress, parliaments, institution, UN institution, NGOs, local, regional governments, but we have to do our grassroots work very good, and then we have the obligation to inform about Muslim Ummah this genocide.
Yeah. Sheikh Abdul Hakim, you mentioned that China is scared of Muslims. Why is that, and what examples do you have to, or evidence do we have to prove that?
Because if you look, the China getting their oil from Kazakhstan. They're getting their mainly money from Muslim countries. If you go to Saudi Arabia, almost 90% of the wares in this, sold there made in China, and they are doing business in Africa and Muslim countries more than in Western countries. And if the Muslim, see that the real face of the Chinese communist regime and their hatred against Islam, against the faith, against religion, and they will lose their faith, their credibility, and that will damage them economically and their power structure. And then will be not easier to the Muslim leaders to stand up with China, and not to talking about the Uyghur issue.
Okay, okay. Talking about their power structure, there was a quite a high profile change of the person that Chinese Communist Party had in charge of the so-called Xinjiang region. Do you think that is because of the way the genocide of the Uyghurs is being broadcast around the world, or is that something an internal matter in your opinion?
This is a complex situation, and this is one side. This is next level of the genocide. I think that the first one did his job, Xinjiang, like a butcher. He killed millions of people, disappeared millions of Uyghur Muslims, and he destroyed everything. And the next one is Mashungri is seeing this like a manager. He will be, bringing more Han Chinese to Turkestan, bringing more business to the Chinese business to Turkestan, and this is the next level of genocide. And we are seeing already, what he is saying and doing is as I wrote, did a chapter in my book about the Bingtuan XPCC. They will, bring those companies to the south of Turkestan. They control
so
right
XPCC
now
is basically
80%.
Can you explain what
80% of the
XPCC is?
Turkestan's economy, and they want to control, almost 100% economy through this semi-military institution or corporation, and then they will work like a tempa agency for the slavery, the Uyghur forced labor. They will bring the Uyghurs as a forced slavery. As you know, the Bingtuan has more than 800,000 companies around the world. Right now, they're doing this the forced labor destruction in inner China, and it's very difficult to Western country, to go to the Bingtuan, because between this company you see and the owner of this company is a Bingtuan, there are more than 100 to 100 companies, and they playing on the paper, and this is what we are seeing it, and it's not slowing down this genocide. Right now, already, they intensifying the free economic zone in Kashgar. They want, make Kashgar like a one of the inner China city, from look, from the population, from the culture, from everything. And this is a very tragic event happening right now.
So, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Abdul Hakim. If you're just joining us, brothers and sisters and friends, this is Voice of Istiqlal on Istiqlal TV, one of the first and oldest East Turkestan Press and Media Association. So, we're trying to get in this program voices from East Turkestan, voices from Uyghurs themselves, the people of East Turkestan, in the English language, to speak to brothers and sisters around the world directly, to hear their voices and their own narratives from their own mouths, rather than people speaking about them. And so, Sheikh Abdul Hakim Idris, one thing I wanted to ask you. So we've spoken about your message to Muslims in Muslim majority countries, your message to Muslims in Western countries, for example, where there are more freedoms to speak out against China's genocide against the Uyghurs, for example. I want to ask you a question about what your you see, many Muslims in the UK, in America, in Europe, they they do carry out business with Chinese companies. You know, the thing, e-commerce has exploded in the last few decades, of course. You know, many Muslims are involved in buying things from companies based in China, but specifically based in occupied East Turkestan, aka Xinjiang province, where a lot of the manufacturing appears to happen. And you know, many would say that's because, you know, it's cheap, because in part of forced labor and effectively modern day slavery of people there. Now, what is your message to those Muslims that are involved in purchasing goods and from that region of China? What I want them to hear from yourselves, and what is the message from yourself and from the Uyghur community that you represent and that you interact with?
My personally message, you know, they should read my book, Menace China's Colonization of Islamic World, which I try to bring more fact, you know, not talking about just like there's a resource. They can themselves, you know, looking at in the details. With the doing business with the Chinese forced labor production, they doing two damages. One is for the Uyghur Muslim population in East Turkestan. They doing them, you know, bringing them slavery. You know, it's not honorable business. Second is they doing very damage for themselves or their countries where they are from, because China already get East Turkestan occupied more than 70 years. They are conducting genocide right now. But as a Uyghurs, Muslims, we, you know, are warning our brothers and sisters around the world from the danger from China. They destructing the business. They, you know, bringing this slavery production facility to the Muslim countries. And what the Uyghur Muslim facing today will be tomorrow your destiny. And those business people, it's very hard, you know, it's very hard to them and asking them, but this is the truth, and we have to tell them honestly.
So one of the things that has to be said, or maybe one of the strategies that should be explored, perhaps, is to look for and empower Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries, to trade with each other, for example, to develop and invest in the infrastructure and the manufacturing capacity and the transport links, for example, supply chains and so forth of Muslim other countries, could be Muslim majority states, kind of dealing with one another. I read a statistic in a think tank report here. It's called Ayan Institute, that the number one and number two first and second countries in the ranking of export and import for pretty much every Muslim majority country is USA and China. You know, if we replace those with Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries dealing and manufacturing things and trading with one another, more so, that will go some way towards helping the situation in East Turkestan, presumably. So that's your message to those people who are doing business with China, but there has to be some kind of strategy to help them replace that dependency on China, those supply chains, you know. And it's something that's been happening for many decades, unfortunately. It's difficult to just kind of separate, one could argue, from China and Chinese kind of manufacturing. I mean, I heard, for example, in the USA, you know, even tomatoes or Canada or something, even tomatoes or garlic or ginger, these types of things are transported from China amazingly, when these can be grown in many countries around the world. So there has to be some kind of attention on that regard as well. Just before we wrap up this episode, during the time of this recording, we're in the midst of the Beijing the Winter Olympics, all right, 2022. Um, how I mean, you've written in a piece for Islam 21C, for example, about the parallels between the Olympics in 1937, I think it was, Nazi Germany, and the Olympics in the Chinese, so-called Chinese Olympics. But how successful have the Chinese been this time around? Because they hosted the Olympics in 2008 as well, I believe. How successful have they been this time around in trying to present a better image of themselves and delete the kind of genocide happening in East Turkestan this time around?
China did with very good plan years ago to use this Olympic to make their image better and sell around the world. But Allah did His own plan. And in those, the Olympic, right now going on, while the Uyghur genocide, the China conducting genocide on Uyghur Muslims in East Turkestan, and this COVID, this Wuhan virus, still around the world affecting everybody, coming from China. And many media outlets and many Uyghur organizations and even many journalists were talking about the spirit of the Olympic. And China tried to misuse the spirit of Olympic. The Olympic is the strength, the harmony between population, nations, and religions around the world and humanity. But they, just used it for the Chinese communist surveillance dictatorship. Even I think the player, if they come back, they will tell their stories. They were like in the surveillance prisons in China right now. And despite that came, Ukraine crisis. Everybody talking about Ukraine. Who cares? Or the Olympic, I think the China didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve. And we can see, impact our works. Every Uyghurs, every organization, and the Muslims, and the Jewish, and the Christian went out, speak about this Olympic and the Uyghur genocide, and they get the impact. And even some TV station in the U.S., they broadcast the Olympic game, but they force themselves, they're talking about the Uyghur issue around them. So I saw in Germany too, there was many talk shows about the Uyghur genocide and why the Olympic going on. I think that China didn't get what they want. Alhamdulillah, it was for us a chance, to use and bring the real situation, what is going on in East Turkestan. I think, that's in my opinion, that's the impact today. And I'm here talking about the people, nobody talking about the Olympics. Nobody cares about what's going on there. Nobody watching it.
Alhamdulillah. So on that positive note, inshallah, we'll wrap up today's program, inshallah. We'll hope to have you on in the future, Sheikh Abdul Hakim Idris, who's been coming from Turkey. I've been your host, Salman Butt, streaming here from the UK. And thank you very much, brothers and sisters and friends. Thank you very much, Jazakumullah khaira, Sheikh Abdul Hakim Idris, and to all of you watching at home. This has been Voice of Istiqlal from Istiqlal TV, one of the first and oldest East Turkestan press and media associations, giving a voice globally to the Uyghur brothers and sisters from East Turkestan. And we're starting this program to bring that into the English-speaking world. So please do click like, click subscribe, and hit the bell notification, and get involved in the comments as well. Let us know what you think, or any questions that you would like to have put to Uyghur leaders, Uyghur scholars, and witnesses of the genocide yourself. Any questions that you'd like to put to them yourself, and any other guests as well. So my name's been I've been your host, Salman Butt. My name's been Salman Butt. I've been your host, and this is the first inshallah of many programs that we will do, interviewing and speaking with prominent people from East Turkestan, our Uyghur brothers and sisters in the English language. So please do, again, support this channel, support Istiqlal TV, Istiqlal Media Group. The details should be in the description below where to go to support financially, support with boosting the signal of these programs and this channel. They have activities and daily reporting actually in the Uyghur language, in Turkish, and also in Arabic. And they're trying to, inshallah, build a capacity for a proper, regular English language publication and production and news, TV, internet, TV news. So please do support them generously with your time, with your effort, with your finances, inshallah. That's it for now. We'll hope to see you in the next program, inshallah. If you want to be notified of the next program, please do click subscribe wherever you're watching this, and you should be notified of it, inshallah. And that's it for today. Jazakumullahu khaira. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.